It's time for us to take a closer look. We heard the rumours back in November that the HPE deal to acquire Juniper Networks was getting a closer look from the Department of Justice. Last week, we got confirmation that the DoJ will be filing a suit to halt the deal. The argument from the government is that the result of the deal will be 70% of the market for networking equipment being held by just two companies. Specifically cited was the wireless LAN component, where the DoJ said there were only three major players. This was refuted quickly by both HPE and Juniper. The UK Competition and Markets Authority and the EU have both cleared the deal. Tom, let's start with you. What's going on here? Why is this water so muddy?
Man, you wonder what is going on. And I think there's really two things at play here. The first thing is that this is actually a carryover from what was going on before presidential administration change happened. We knew that the deal was going to be looked at by around Thanksgiving, mid-November of last year. I would hazard a guess that the current presidential administration actually doesn't know what's going on here. I think that this is probably the result of enforcement actions that were planned 3 months ago that are just being executed now. There's no coincidence that this deal has actually been announced roughly 1 year to the day that the announcement of the acquisition was made in the first place. Not really that surprised there. So this is the traditional government feeling like they need to have their say in what's going on because we can't just rubber stamp all of these acquisitions because a lot of them have blown up in their faces and those kinds of things. So that's part one. Government needs to say that they at least tried to get the deal negotiated under better terms. Two, I don't see how the text of the order from the DOJ can be squared with the reality of the situation. So they specifically called out the fact that there are really only two major network manufacturers right now that have 70% of the market, Cisco and HPE. The other 30% are probably really, really mad right now, and I don't blame them. They specifically cited the fact that Juniper missed access points along with HPE Aruba Networking and Cisco Catalyst are the three dominant players in the market. Fortinet, Ruckus, Extreme, Arista, Ubiquity. I just named 5 more, kiddos. And that was off the top of my head. Have you asked them how they feel about this? Because I know for a fact Ruckus will have a very strong opinion about whether or not they consider there to really only be 3 players in the market. I understand the pushback against this deal. Some of my friends in the wireless space are vehemently opposed to this deal because they believe that it will ultimately make things worse for the customers. And I see that perspective, right? How can things be better when two companies that are competing against each other are suddenly one company? But I don't see a remedy for this that doesn't involve like adjusting the purchase price or agreeing to something else, because there's been some talk about the only way to get this deal approved is to divest Mist. Kids, that's the only reason this deal's going through. Look, I get it. Everyone's like, oh, well, HPE buying Juniper really augments their data center switching and allows GreenLake to have much more of this. Okay, great. And then they pick up the service provider market, which is like a cash stream, whatever. We know what the deal is. They want Mist. They want Marvis. They want Marvis and Central. Like, that's the thing. And there is a lot of other counterplay going on behind the scenes here, not the least of which is if you listen to the people who are Juniper fans who historically have been very touchy when it comes to Cisco, they believe that Cisco has been lobbying against this deal so that HPE Juniper cannot be the clear number 2 in the market to take them on. Al, how does it look to you?
Well, I'm a little outside of the whole business on here. I thought it was very interesting that some of the criteria from the DOJ was that HP had previously had to discount their products in order to compete with Mist, and that was really their criteria for doing the investigation. When I first heard of the deal, it was painted as looking at AI networking, that the Juniper AI networking was supposed to be what this whole deal was about, what HPE wanted to acquire from this Juniper acquisition for, what was it, $14 billion? Yeah, it never quite made sense to me that it was about data center AI, and I wonder just how this will finish out playing. It may, as you say, just be that the Department of Justice wants to flex some muscles and say that they are actually in control here, and that they will then say, yes, actually, this is all good, but you have our permission to go ahead, rather than it was a given that we would because everybody else had said this was a good deal. Big acquisitions are always tough. They're always a huge risk for all parties involved, and particularly for customers. And I can understand there being quite a lot of customer discomfort around this consolidation. Um, HPE has made quite a lot of acquisitions of new technology rather than building their own over the years, and we've seen them build up quite a stable of networking components that they didn't have going back 10 years ago. So, yeah, this has definitely been building strength for HPE. But in terms of destroying competition, particularly in wireless networking, as you say, there's plenty of other players out there who are definitely competitive in the space, and definitely have their own differentiations. I wonder if there'd have been the same kind of opposition if HPE had been acquiring a combination of Ruckus and Ubiquity in order to get into some of the spaces where maybe they're not quite as focused. Maybe that would have been easier to acquire and not led to this bump along the road. But I think this is just a bump, and that in the end, the acquisition is going to go ahead. Tom, do you think this really is the end of this acquisition?
No, I think this is going to go through. Unfortunately, the damage that this would cause to Juniper if it did not go through is catastrophic. They This will happen. And Stephen Foskett said as much on Tech Strong Gang yesterday. He thinks that this is just a little bit more positioning. We got to sweeten the deal a little bit. The current presidential administration in the U.S. has historically been merger friendly with large companies, so I don't think that we're going to run into any issues there. Maybe they have to agree to like a competition hold on something or what have you. I think ultimately this will happen. One thing I will point out here is that the original startup Mist Systems, when they were first being developed, was actually a spin out that was backed by John Chambers. And a lot of people believed at the time that it was going to be spun back into Cisco, like so many of their other startup ideas, and that this was essentially going to take over their wireless department. And the acquisition timing just so happened to be right after John Chambers retired from Cisco as CEO and chairman of the board. Chuck Robbins came on and decided he wasn't going to do that. No more spin outs, no more spin ins. You'll notice this is also the time when Mario Mazzola, Prem Jain, Luca Caffiero, and Sonny Giandani, the MPLS crew, finally left Cisco for the last time. They went out, they developed the technology Pensando, which was later acquired by HPE and became a huge part. Actually, no, that's not true. It was not acquired by HPE. It was acquired by AMD. It was in HPE switches. The Pensando DPU was included in there. I thought it was going to be acquired by HPE, and that's actually it ended up going to AMD. But a lot of people were saying, well, is this sour grapes from Cisco deciding that they missed out on Mist, so they're going to just basically wreck it in the hopes that maybe they can buy the shattered remnants of the company? I don't think it'll be quite that bad. Let's be fair. If Juniper can survive Elliott Capital Management having a stake in their company, they're survivors. But this is a little bit too big to come back from. I think that the adjustment will happen. There's too many people that are already seeing this as a done deal. The fact that HPE and Juniper both put out a joint statement talking about how ridiculous this is tells me this is going to happen.